Okay, so ready for a real head scratcher.
Always up for a challenge. Lay it on me.
We're talking Linda McMahon,
Yeah.
former CEO of World Wrestling Entertainment, now in charge of the U.S. Department of Education.
That's quite a jump.
Right. And here's the kicker. She's open to dismantling the very department she leads.
Whoa, okay, hold on. That's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, no kidding. So
Yeah.
the big question is, how does this wild situation affect, well, you,
Yeah.
the average person out there?
Yeah, I mean, it makes you wonder. Let's face it, McMahon's background is all business, right? WWE, Small Business Administration, that kind of thing. But traditional education, not exactly her forte.
Yeah, it's a pretty big contrast.
It makes you question how her leadership style, will work in this completely different world.
Definitely. And this isn't just about McMahon herself. This is President Trump's vision, too, shaking up the whole education system.
Right. Trump's been pretty upfront about wanting to shrink the federal government, and that includes potentially axing the Department of Education altogether.
And McMahon's totally on board with that, especially the part about giving states more control.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Public opinion's not really on the same page. We've got this NPR PBS Marist poll, and it shows that 63% of Americans, they don't want to ditch the Department of Education.
Yeah, so you've got this real clash between what the administration's pushing for and what a lot of people actually want. Well,
Exactly. And I think for most people, the big question is, what does this mean for the actual programs they rely on?
right. Like, will their kids' schools still get the funding they need? Will college still be affordable?
Yeah, those are huge concerns.
McMahon says she's all for keeping education funding, even if the department gets dismantled. But is that really possible?
It makes you wonder, how do you separate the money from, the whole system that manages it?
Right. It's not like you can just snap your fingers and make it happen.
Exactly. It's a recipe for chaos. And there are so many programs at stake. I mean, title funding for low-income schools, that's huge.
Massive. Millions of students rely on that.
Exactly. And then there's Pell grants, to help make college affordable, and IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which ensures support for, students with disabilities.
Can't forget about public service loan forgiveness either. That's a lifeline for people who choose to work in public service.
Right. All these programs that impact so many people's lives. And it's not clear how shifting everything to the state level will affect them.
It's a lot of uncertainty. And it's making a lot of people nervous, especially those who depend on these programs. I've even heard some senators calling the administration's promises elegant gaslighting.
Ooh, that's harsh. But I can see why they'd say that. There's a real fear that the reality on the ground won't match up with all the talk coming out of Washington.
Yeah, it's like they're saying one thing but doing another, and that's a problem. So we're in this crazy situation, right? We have a new education secretary who's coming from a completely different world. She's pushing a president's agenda that a lot of people don't agree with. And there's this huge cloud of uncertainty hanging over everything. It's a lot to process.
Yeah, we've definitely got our work cut out for us trying to figure out how this is all going to play out.
And that's what we're here to do. We're going to dive deep into this issue, explore the potential consequences, and hopefully shed some light on what it all means for you, the listener. So buckle up. This is going to be a wild ride.
Feels like we're trying to, rebuild a plane while it's still in the air.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just mess with the systems that are keeping it up there. Right. And in this case, we're talking about millions of kids and their education.
Exactly. Their whole future, really. And this brings up another big concern, equity. The Department of Education, it's supposed to make sure every student has a fair shot,
Yeah.
regardless of where they come from, what they look like, any of that.
So how would handing control over to the states impact that whole idea of equity?
That's the million-dollar question. I mean, historically speaking, different states have always had different approaches to education.
Yeah, for sure.
Different funding levels, different priorities. Some are better at tackling things like racial and socioeconomic achievement gaps.
And those gaps are already pretty huge, even with the current system.
Right, and the worry is that getting rid of the department could make those inequalities even worse. Kids in some states could end up with way fewer opportunities just because of where they live.
Yeah, that's a scary thought.
And it's not just about money either. The Department of Education, they enforce federal laws, laws that protect students' rights, especially those from marginalized groups. Like Title IX, that's the one that bans sex-based discrimination.
Yeah, Title IX is a big one.
And IDEA, that makes sure students with disabilities get the support they need.
So if the department goes away, who's going to enforce all that? Will states be held to the same standards?
That's a good question. Do they even have the resources, the manpower to do it all themselves? A lot of people who fight for students' rights are super worried about this. They're saying, we've made so much progress over the years, and this could set us back decades,
Yeah, like all that progress could just disappear.
and it could make the most vulnerable kids even more vulnerable, which is, the opposite of what we want.
Absolutely. And it's not just about rolling back policies that are already there. We have to think about what this administration is actively trying to do, like getting rid of diversity programs
Yeah.
and all the stuff around accommodations for transgender athletes.
Yeah, that's definitely been a hot button issue.
What kind of message does that send to kids? How does that shape the environment they're learning in?
It's a tough one. The people who support these moves, they say it's all about inclusivity, creating a welcoming space for everyone. And they've got research to back them up. Studies showing that kids from different backgrounds, they actually do better academically when they feel valued and respected.
Yeah, it sense. But of
Yeah.
course, there's the other side.
Right, the critics. They say these programs, they're not needed. Or that they're actually harmful, pushing a specific agenda. Or that they step on the rights of other students.
Yeah, it's pretty heated.
It's a supercharged debate. Strong opinions on both sides. It's hard to find middle ground. But at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, what kind of education system are we trying to build here? One that embraces differences and welcomes everyone, or one that tries to make everyone the same, fit into a specific mold?
That's a big question. And the answer has real consequences for students, teachers, families all across the country. It's something we all need to be thinking about.
Absolutely. It might feel like these decisions are being made, way up there in Washington, far removed from our everyday lives. But the truth is, they're going to have a ripple effect. They'll be felt throughout the entire education system.
So what can we do as regular people? How do we make our voices heard? I mean, it can feel pretty overwhelming trying to influence something as big as the federal government.
Yeah, it's like, what can one person really do, right?
But that's where things get interesting. Because change, it often starts small, at the local level.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean. Think about it. Attending those school board meetings, the ones everyone avoids, actually going and speaking up.
Right. Making your voice heard where it matters.
Exactly. Or reaching out to your representatives, letting them know what you think, what your concerns are.
Yeah, I guess we often forget about that direct line we have to them.
It's easy to. But even something like volunteering in a classroom or
Oh, yeah.
supporting organizations that are fighting for, better education for everyone, that all makes a difference.
Right. So it's about getting involved on a personal level.
Yeah.
I guess even just having these conversations with friends, with family, can help raise awareness.
Oh, for sure. We underestimate the power of just staying informed, reading articles, listening to podcasts like this one, following experts on social media. All of that equips you to be a better advocate.
Yeah, you're right. Knowledge is power. And in this case, it can help you fight for the kind of education system you believe in.
Exactly. It's easy to get lost in the political back and forth, but we can't forget what this is all about.
Real people,
Yeah.
kids, families, whole communities.
And that's why it's so important to figure out what quality education actually means to you. What are the values, the principles that should guide our schools? Those aren't easy questions, but they're ones we need to grapple with if we want to navigate this whole, changing landscape.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we'll leave you with this. What will your role be in shaping the future of education?
It's a question we hope you'll really think about, and one that hopefully will inspire action. A commitment to creating an education system that truly works for everyone. So until next time, keep learning, keep asking those tough questions, and keep pushing for a better future for all.